Gwen stood in front of the mirror. Her wedding dress was blindingly white, soft, decorated with tiny sparkling beads. Her hair and light makeup gave her a soft glow. She looked like a real bride, beautiful, sophisticated. But inside there was no joy. Her soul was heavy, as if someone had put a weight on her chest. She tried to smile, but the smile did not reach her eyes. Grace, her best friend, came up to her and smiled widely. "Gwen, you look amazing, like a real queen." Gwen smiled weakly. "Thank you." Emma looked at her intently. "Shumi, are you okay?" Gwen took a deep breath. "I think so, just nervous." But that was not the whole truth. She felt that she was not ready. She had known Romy for only a few months. He was smart, kind, and always knew what to say. When he proposed, she had doubts. But her mother kept saying, "Good men don't wait long, and you need to settle down. You're not a little girl anymore." And there she was, in her dress, ready to walk down the aisle. But her heart was telling her that something was wrong. Emma handed her a glass of water. "You're just scared. It's normal. Every bride feels that way." Gwen nodded. "Maybe." But deep down, she knew that the anxiety was still there. Romy wasn't born rich. He came from a humble background, like her. But in the last few years, something had changed. Romy was rich, a lot rich. He told her that he worked in tech, that he had launched an online project that had unexpectedly become successful. No one really understood what he was doing, but the money was real. An expensive car, a new house, designer clothes, he had it all now. Had it. His mother, Lily, was incredibly proud of him. She walked with her head held high, telling everyone at every opportunity that her son was one of the most promising young men in the city. He made himself, she said proudly, smart, goal-oriented, successful. And so she believed that Romy deserved a girl who matched his new level. In her opinion, Gwen was not like that. Lily always held her head high and proudly told how Romy had become one of the most promising young men in their town. He made himself, she said with admiration, smart, driven, successful, which was why, in her opinion, he deserved a girl worthy of his new status. From the very beginning, Lily believed that Gwen was not the one. She never said rude things openly, especially in front of others, but her cold smiles and backhanded compliments left wounds. "She's nice," Lily once said with a forced smile, "but I hope she can adapt to this lifestyle. Romy has a completely different world now." Gwen remembered everything down to the smallest detail. A bright dress full of colors, her family singing, dancing, and giving gifts. They came with joy, love, music, and pride in their culture. Her father gave a moving speech. Her mother beamed with happiness. And Romy's family sat silently, tensely, whispering among themselves. Margaret looked unhappy the whole time. Later, Gwen heard Lily say to two women, "She's kind, but it's obvious she grew up in a different family. Their traditions are not ours. That's what happens when you marry outside your tribe." One of the women nodded. "Yes, it's noisy. It's a little rough. Not our level." "She'll have to learn," Lily added. "Romy needs someone who matches his status, not someone he'll have to drag along. He could have had his pick of any of ours." "She's lucky he chose her." Gwen stood nearby, hidden from view, holding her breath. Her eyes were filled with tears. Her heart was slowly breaking. That evening, she told Romy what she'd heard. "She didn't mean to be offensive," he quickly replied. "My mom's just worried." "Worried about what?" Gwen asked. "That I'm not rich enough? That my family isn't like yours?" Romy sighed heavily, staring at his phone. "Just forget it. The wedding is almost here." "Not now." He never came to her defense. He became more and more distant with each passing day. Something was wrong, but no one wanted to talk about it. Gwen stood at the door to her room. It was almost time to go to the ceremony hall and begin the festivities. Her heart was pounding. Her palms were sweaty. Emma had just gone ahead to help with the flower girls. Gwen needed some time alone. She took a deep breath and reached for the doorknob. As soon as she stepped out into the hallway, she heard voices around the corner. Two men were talking quietly. She recognized one voice as one of Romy's best men. The other was unfamiliar to her, sounding older. "She's pretty," the older voice said. "Yeah," the best man replied. "But you know Romy. He's not ready to settle down. He just wants to seem serious. He says this girl, Gwen, is perfect. Modest, quiet, won't poke her nose where it doesn't belong." The second man laughed. "That's right," the best man confirmed. "Once it's over, everyone will leave." Gwen froze. Her heart seemed to stop. What were they talking about? Why? Could Romy really say that? She stepped back, trying not to be noticed, and tried to brush it off. Surely it was just gossip. Romy wouldn't say that. She wasn't sure what it meant, but something about this conversation was wrong. Everything was wrong. A few minutes later, the music started playing, the doors opened, and the guests stood. Gwen walked down the aisle. The room was full of people, but it seemed empty. Some smiled at her, but Romy's relatives either turned away or looked at her coldly. Lily didn't smile at all. Her face was motionless and icy. Romy stood at the altar, impeccably dressed. He looked handsome, but he didn't seem happy. He didn't look at Gwen until she was right next to him. Even then, his gaze wasn't full of love, but rather appraising. "You look good," he said quietly. "Thank you," Gwen whispered, trying not to let the tremor in her voice show. Ceremony began. The pastor spoke. The vows were said. But Gwen seemed to be watching from the outside as if from someone else's body. She felt numb. And then came the moment she had been waiting for. "The couple is about to jump over the broom," the pastor announced. Gwen turned to Romy with a soft smile. "It's a tradition in my family. We've been doing it for generations." Romy looked at the broom neatly laid out in front of them and snorted. "I'm not doing it." Gwen's smile faded. "Why, mate, it means a lot to me." "It's stupid," he said, not even lowering his voice. "We don't need to deal with this old-fashioned nonsense." "It's not stupid," Gwen said quietly but firmly. "It's part of my culture. My parents, my grandparents, they all did it. It's important to me." Romy shook his head. "Let's just move on to the next part. This isn't the time for that kind of thing." The pastor hesitated. The guests began to mutter. Gwen froze. Her heart was bursting at the seams in the silence. In that moment, she suddenly realized he did not respect her. Not her, not her family, not her culture. But somewhere inside, another voice whispered, maybe she was exaggerating. Maybe he didn't mean it that way. A few more minutes passed and it was over. Everyone headed to the reception hall. The hall was magnificent. Golden light poured from the ceiling, flowers on every table, the scent of roses and delicate perfume hung in the air. Music played in the background. Guests laughed, raised glasses, toasted. But Gwen did not feel like a bride. She stood at the entrance, watching from the sidelines. People came up, hugged her, congratulated her, took pictures. But it all seemed somehow alien, as if she had found herself in someone else's fairy tale. Romy was on the other side of the room, not next to her, not holding her hand. He was standing at the bar, whispering something again, with the same man she had overheard before the ceremony. Lily stood up slowly, holding a glass of wine. Her smile was wide, almost perfect, but her eyes were sharp as a blade. The room fell silent. "I just want to thank everyone for coming today," she began. "Today is a special day. My son, Romy, has always been a man of vision, a hard worker, a creator, and now he has taken another bold step." She turned slightly and looked directly at Gwen. It takes strength and courage to marry someone from another world, with different traditions, a different culture. But Romy has always been generous, open. He is willing to give a chance, even to those who come from a world far from his own. There was a pause. The room was silent. Some guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Gwen felt her chest tighten. Her throat was dry. She looked at Romy, hoping he would say something. Protect her. Support her. Just look at her. But he was silent, staring into his glass. He didn't look up. He didn't say a word. And he let his mother say it in front of everyone. The applause was muffled, hesitant. A few claps, then silence. Emma reached out and took Gwen's fingers. Gwen squeezed her hand as hard as she could, to keep from crying. She had never felt so alone. The wedding cake towered in the center of the room. 4 tiers, smooth white icing, decorated with gold lines and delicate pink flowers. A small crowd was already gathering around it. The music died down. The lights in the hall were dimmed. It was time to cut the cake. Gwen stood next to Romy. Gwen tried to smile for the camera, but her heart was tired. Her cheeks ached from the forced smiles. Her chest tightened with the feelings she'd held inside for too long. And then Romy's cousin Lillian took the microphone. She'd baked the wedding cake. She wore a bright green dress and a proud smile. She cleared her throat and looked around the room. "I just want to say how proud I am to be a part of this beautiful day," she began. "This cake, like this marriage, is built on love, on support, on family." People nodded and smiled. But suddenly her voice changed. "Some families give gifts. Some help with the organization. and some just come to enjoy the celebration. But, she grinned, everyone has a role, right? There were quiet chuckles in the room. Someone turned away. Gwen froze. The words hit her like a slap. She looked around at the looks, the whispers. Her family, her parents. They tried. They gave everything they could. They had no money, but they had love. And now they were being ridiculed, in front of everyone. She turned to Romy. Her voice was shaking. Did you hear that? He didn't meet her gaze. It's nothing, just a joke. No, Gwen whispered. That was disrespectful. Are you just going to keep quiet? Romy sighed heavily. Can we not start this here? You're making a scene. Gwen took a step back. A scene? Your mother is insulting me. Your cousin is making fun of my family, and you are silent. I'm tired. He put down his glass. His face grew tense. Enough. Now is not the time. No, Gwen said louder. If you don't do something, I will. I won't let your family humiliate me anymore. And before she could finish, Romy's hand shot out. Slap! Stop! He shouted. The sound echoed through the room like a clap of thunder. The music stopped. People gasped. Silence hung in the air. Gwen froze, pressing her palm to her cheek. She was burning, not just from the blow, but from the humiliation. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. He was in shock at what he had done. She glanced around at the guests. Everyone was looking at her. Mouths were open, eyes wide. Someone already had a phone in their hand. Romy stood rooted to the spot. He didn't go to her. He didn't extend his hand. He didn't say a word. He didn't even say, I'm sorry. And that was enough. Gwen understood. She turned and walked to the DJ stand. He looked at her uncertainly. Give me the microphone, she said calmly. He held it out without a word. Gwen turned to the people, to those who had smiled at her, clapped for her, and now sat as if paralyzed. She took a breath. I should have left earlier, she said. Her voice was clear and confident. I should have listened to myself, to that feeling in my chest, to the voice in my heart. But I didn't. I ignored every sign, every insult, every cold look. Her voice didn't waver, not once. I thought that love was about enduring, that being a good woman meant being silent. I was wrong. She looked at Romy. He was still silent, not moving, not trying to stop her. I want every woman who hears me now to remember this. You don't have to be silent. You don't have to let yourself be trampled on. You don't have to please someone who doesn't appreciate you. Go away before it's too late. She took off her wedding ring. She held it in her palm for a second, and then she put it on the table next to her. I choose myself. I choose peace. I choose freedom. The room was silent. No one moved. She handed the microphone back and walked out. Head held high, back straight, not a single tear. Bye. The air outside was cool, crisp. It touched her face like a reassuring hug. Her heels tapped out on the path to the parking lot. Gwen, Emma called, running after her. Gwen stopped. Emma hugged her tightly. You're so strong. I'm proud of you. And then her mother came up. There were tears in her eyes. My girl, she whispered, holding Gwen close. You did everything right. Safe from them. And finally, free. That night, Gwen sat curled up on Emma's couch, wrapped in a soft blanket. Her wedding dress was gone, replaced by Emma's old t-shirt and loose pants. Her hair was disheveled, her face bare. And yet, for the first time in hours, she felt safe. Emma set a cup of hot tea in front of her and sat down next to her. You don't have to talk, just rest. Gwen nodded. Her body was tired, but her heart was even more so. The phone rang, over and over. She didn't pick it up. She didn't want to hear it from anyone, not now. But then Emma's phone buzzed. Then again. A notification appeared on the screen. Emma picked it up, her eyes widening. Oh my God. Gwen turned to her. What happened? It's everywhere, Emma whispered. She turned the screen towards her. Video. Slap. Silence. Gwen with the microphone. Her speech. The moment when she leaves. Published everywhere. All the major platforms, blogs, influencers, news portals. Millions of views, a wave of indignation. Comments poured in one after another. This is heartbreaking. She deserves better. He hit her in front of everyone. Imagine what happened behind closed doors. That speech, that power. I'm crying. Gwen fell back on the pillow, shocked. Her pain, her personal shame, had become the history of the whole world. But not in the form of pity, in the form of support, solidarity, admiration. And on the other side of town, Romy's name was trending. but not at all in the way he once dreamed of. The same Romy who boasted about his perfect image has now become the face of shame. Romy's image was no longer one of success, but of shame. He was called a coward, an abuser, a fake. TV reporters picked up the story. Bloggers compiled a timeline. Hashtags spread like wildfire. People began digging into his past.
Who was he really?
What else was he hiding? Gwen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She just sat there, clutching her warm mug, staring at the screen. "Are you okay?" Emma asked quietly. Gwen looked up at her. "I don't know," she said honestly. "But maybe this was never meant to be in the shadows." A few days had passed since the wedding that never happened. Gwen stayed with Emma. She needed time to breathe, to sleep, to just be. Sometimes she would remain silent for days. Sometimes she would write in her diary, trying to figure out what had happened and why. But the internet didn't forget. History went on. New videos, reactions, articles. Gwen tried not to read, not to delve into it. But one morning, Emma ran into the living room, phone in hand, out of breath. "Gwen, you need to see this." Gwen slowly rose, took the phone. Breaking news: Romy Okoso arrested on suspicion of massive online fraud. Gwen froze. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled through the text. It turned out that Romy had been detained at his home. A massive scam, fake businesses, stolen data, deceived investors. He was no longer a successful man. He was an exposed liar. Financial investigators say Romy ran a massive internet scam. Fake websites, phony investment offers, identity theft. Dozens of victims, millions of dollars. His tech company? A dummy. A fictitious facade for laundering money. The offices were fake. The clients were actors. The success story was a lie, an elaborate performance. And the wedding? The wedding was part of the plan too. Gwen read with bated breath. But one line hit her particularly hard. According to sources close to the case, Romy was trying to create the image of a stable married man to reduce suspicion and avoid prosecution.
The phone fell from her hands.
It all became clear now. The strange calls, the older man who was always there, the partner, and the whispers she heard around the corner on their wedding day. He just wants to look responsible. Once this is over, they'll leave him alone. He didn't love her. He used her, not just for the sake of a pretty picture, but for cover. The woman next to him, quiet, loyal, harmless. And when she dared to speak, he destroyed her in front of everyone. Emma sat down next to him, quietly taking Gwen's hand. "Now do you see," she whispered. "It wasn't you who missed something. It was he who was dangerous. You were just his target." Later that day, a photo leaked online. Lily, Romy's proud mother, stood on the porch of her house. The police were leading her son away in handcuffs. Her eyes were red. Her mouth was pressed into a thin line. For the first time, she had nothing to say. The woman who had once looked down on Gwen now hid her face behind a silk scarf, dodging reporters' questions. She told everyone that Gwen was unworthy of her son. But now the whole world saw the shame did not belong to the bride. It belonged to her son. A week passed. Gwen stood in the courtyard of her home in the shadow of the evening sky. The air was quiet, soft as a sigh. In the courtyard, plastic chairs were laid out in a semicircle. Uncles, aunts, neighbors, distant and close relatives had gathered. This was not a wedding. This was the closing of a chapter. On a low tray lay the returned kalim, envelopes with money, scarves, small gifts, all laid out neatly. They waited for someone from the other side to come and collect. But the table opposite remained empty. Lily and Romy's family were invited. But after the arrest, after the trial, after the disgrace, they did not come. The trial was swift. The evidence was overwhelming. Documents, correspondence, fictitious company reports. Everything. Romy was found guilty. 20 years in prison. All accounts, cars, houses, confiscated. His reputation, once polished, shiny, was now destroyed to the ground. And Lily fell silent. The woman who once pronounced Gwen's name with disdain now hid behind closed shutters. Neighbors whispered. Friends turned away. There were no more words. Gwen watched as her uncle rose, walked over to the tray with the bride price and respectfully handed it to the elder. He nodded, took it in his hands, a symbol of completion. "This union is over," he said, "and let it be behind us. You, child, have kept your dignity. You have returned not in disgrace, but in honor." Silence fell over the courtyard, but there was no pain in it. There was calm. Gwen stood up straight, unbroken, strong, free. The decision was made official. There was no clapping, no music, just silence and peace. Later that night, Gwen and her mother sat under a tree in the cool evening air. Her mother held her hand and looked at her tenderly. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. Gwen turned to her. For what? For rushing you, forcing you. I thought I was doing the right thing. I just wanted you to have someone there to care for you." "I know," Gwen whispered. Her mother looked away, then back into her eyes. "But I forgot that in the end, it's you who has to live with this person. Not me, not anyone else. From now on, I won't rush you anymore." Gwen nodded, her eyes filling with tears. But now they weren't from pain, but from love. "I'll wait," Gwen's mother said. "I'll wait with you for that one." At that moment, something inside Gwen began to heal. A few months had passed since the wedding had failed. Gwen lived in a small but cozy apartment not far from Emma. The walls were painted a soft yellow, the curtains were light and airy. The days passed calmly. Recovery was taking its course. Sometimes she was still overcome with anxiety. She woke up from disturbing dreams, heard in her memory the voices that once made her feel insignificant. But every morning she reminded herself, "You left, you saved yourself." One evening, Gwen sat on her balcony. A warm wind ruffled her hair. An old leather journal lay on her lap, which she had not touched in years. She slowly opened it and began to write. "Today I chose myself, and I have done so every day since I left. I didn't just walk away from a wedding, I walked away from a life that would have destroyed my soul. And I'm not ashamed of that. I'm proud." She wrote about the signs she'd ignored, about the slap, about the silence, about the voice she'd found again. When she was done, she showed the notes to Emma. Emma read them in silence, and then, with tears in her eyes, she said, "Gwen, this isn't just a journal, it's a book." Gwen laughed. "A book? Yes. You have no idea how many women need to hear this. How many people are scared, hurting, and silent. Your story can give them hope." At first, Gwen was hesitant, but Emma helped her. Together, they typed up the manuscript, found a publisher, and soon the book was published under the title, "I Walked Away, A True Story of Courage and Freedom" by Gwen Oy. It quickly became a bestseller. People from all over the world wrote to her with words of support, love, and gratitude. Some said that her story had saved their lives. More and more people in toxic relationships began to speak out, and not just women, but men too. One afternoon, Gwen sat in her living room with a new copy of the book in her hands. Her name on the cover, her truth on every page. She smiled. She was no longer the girl in the wedding dress. She was a woman who had chosen herself, a woman who had turned pain into strength.